What's up? Dagic here. We're going to go over Rocco Seeker Scrounger for Pauper EDH. Quick deck tech. You'll see the link, the Moxfield link down there at the bottom. Also, you can scan the QR code on the right there. That'll take you right to it, whichever's easier. I wish Moxfield would have some nicer links available, but yeah, it's kind of a mess. Anyway, some details about this deck. It's obviously Pauper EDH. I got some pros and some cons there on the right there. So it's a nice color, so you got access to like red, green, and white. You got good ramp. You got haste, strong red creatures, some burn. White offers protection and some interaction that you don't get elsewhere. And the deck can be blisteringly fast. You'll see at the bottom, one note is that it can win as early as turn 2. It takes 6 cards of the 9 that you'll see by turn 2. And yeah, I mean, there's redundancy involved too, so it's not 6 specific cards, it's 2 specific cards, 2 lands, and then 2 other cards that are a little bit flexible to get you to a turn 2 win, which is, I think, insanely fast for Pauper EDH. I don't know for sure. I'm sure there's other decks and other ways that can win turn 2 and turn 1, but I'd expect they take more cards. I don't know. I haven't done all the research on that, but turn 2 seems insanely fast. So the basis of the deck is the combo of Hanger Scrounger and Seeker of Skybreak. So you back up the Seeker of Skybreak, and then it taps, targeting itself to untap, which allows you to discard a card and draw a card. So you end up with 1 new card, the same amount of cards in hand, and 1 new card, and an untapped Seeker of Skybreak to redo it. So you can effectively rummage through your entire deck. Now, similarly to the first page, I put some pros and some cons. Infinite rummaging, only 2 cards, 5 total mana, and only 2 colored pips. The weaknesses are both cards are creatures, and there's a timing bottleneck where if you play the Hanger Scrounger and they can kill the Seeker Skybreak in response, it's not hard, but it's annoying to get the Hanger Scrounger back into your hand, right? It's not like an activated ability, so you can't just like get the Seeker back and then do it again. You have to get the Seeker back, get the Hanger Scrounger back in your hand, and cast it again to do the backup. So there are some complications, and that's definitely a choke point of the deck. But we got a little ditty here to show you just sort of like how everything works, right? You end up with 1 new card and 1 old card in the graveyard with an untapped Seeker, and you're good to go. Now, this in itself doesn't win the game. You have to come up with a clever way to win the game, right? And that's what we're here for, right? If you can draw your whole deck, how do you actually, that doesn't win. That's just something you can do that's kind of cool, right? You can, draw forever, but you still have to end the game, otherwise you'll just deck yourself. The combo we landed on is Fuming Effigy and Shenanigans, which interacts with the engine, so to speak, by discarding Shenanigans as the cost for the Hanger Scroungers, or as the first half of the effect for the Hanger Scroungers ability, and then dredging Shenanigans back for the second half of the ability. So you effectively mill 1 card and end up right where you started. But since the Shenanigans went to the graveyard and came back, it will trigger Fuming Effigy. So you'll do 1 damage for each card that's remaining in your library when you get this online. Now, obviously, as noted here, the complication is that it requires the engine to be online, right? You can't just like Fuming Effigy and Shenanigans naturally and win. You can, ping for every card you draw over a bunch of turns. Like, it still does something if you feel like you want to dredge Shenanigans a bunch, or if there's a lot of artifacts, right? If you like blowing up everybody's artifacts and pinging everybody for 1 a turn, then it's not terrible, but it's not fantastic. Right, so this is just showing like how it works. Boom, boom, boom. Everything's back where it started, and you're down 1 card from your library. Now, again, this might not. It takes. There's more work involved, right? You have to cast the Fuming Effigy, right? You might have just spent 8 mana for your Rocco to get your Hanger Scrounger, and you don't have 4 mana left. Like, I'm not saying that this is a 12 mana combo, right? You have to generate mana during the loop in order to win, to cast Fuming Effigy, to get the right number of cards in your hand. So you'll probably have to go through your library more than once, right? So we run both Campfire and Felden's Cane, so we can go through our library, 2.5 times, 2 3/4 times, right? So if you get it online and there's still 70 cards left, you're going to draw 270 cards by the end of this combo. You're going to cast Felden's Cane, activate it, cast Campfire, activate it, to get another redraw. Right, and we just mentioned you have to get cards in your hand, which is not easy in Naya colors. There's no Treasure Cruise to go like +2 cards, right? So you have to get creative again, right? Our primary draw spell is actually Whiteout. Whiteout is a 1 and green instant. All creatures lose flying until end of turn. That's not relevant. But the second ability, sacrifice a snow land, return Whiteout from your graveyard to your hand. So if it's like turn 6, you have 4 or 5 snow lands, and you get the engine online, and you have 1 card, right? Whatever. You discard it, you draw. The card you draw is Whiteout. You discard Whiteout, you draw. You have a random card in hand, and now you sacrifice all of your lands to Whiteout, and you basically draw 5 cards, right? Because you sack a land, get Whiteout in your hand, tap the Seeker Skybreak, discard the Whiteout, draw a new card, right? So Whiteout's where it started. You have another card in your hand, and you're down a land. So you turn every snow land into a new land, and now you're comboing off with 4, 5, or 6 cards in your hand instead of 1. And it's way easier now because you don't have to think oh, do I discard this ritual to find a better card, right? Because you lose if you have to rummage over like Felden's Cane and Campfire, then you just lose. Or if you have to keep rummaging over Fuming Effigy, or if you have to rummage over too many rituals, like you just lose because you run out of resources. So you have to keep putting cards back in your hand. Not to mention like rituals and stuff are card negative. So if you have 3 cards in your hand, you cast a ritual. Now you only have 2, right? You have to account for that. Right? We have to draw cards, and I put it in quotes because it's not really card draw. Right? You're sort of fudging the numbers. And Whiteout is not the only way we draw cards. We have another little angle that we play. We play 1 copy of all 3 Eidolons from the Kamigawa block, which, similar to Whiteout, have an activated ability that is almost irrelevant. Verdant Eidolons comes up occasionally, but really it's the second ability. Whenever you play a multicolored spell, you may return Eidolon from your graveyard to your hand. And we run these 4 multicolored spells, 3 of which are essentially free. So you play a Wild Cantor, and you draw 3 cards. Right? You end up +2. It's your version of Treasure Cruise, right? So we've milled most of our deck. We've hit all of our Eidolons. And then we cast Wild Cantor, and now we're +2 cards. Or Burning Tree Emissary, and we're +2 cards. Or Manamorphose, and we're +3 cards. Right? And it costs nothing. Now, Horikavu has a couple of different uses. It is multicolored, so it does do this. But really, it's there to return Rocco to our hand, right? To get around the commander tax. But it needs to be mentioned. Also, don't forget, your commander is a multicolored spell. So if you discarded an Eidolon to a loot effect previously, when you cast your commander, it'll come back, right? You're not using it as part of the engine, but it will come back to your hand, or it should. It's easy to forget because you're thinking that they're there for the engine, and you know how the engine works and everything, and then you're like, oh, geez, these should have been in my hand the whole time. I shouldn't have 2 cards, I should have 5. Right, so don't forget, because it just makes it harder. It makes it more complicated if you forget that small thing. We've mentioned the rituals a few times. Here's our ritual package. Battle Hymn, Spirit Guide, Lotus Petal, Plunge, Metamorphosis, Tinderwall, and Rite of Flame. These are all sort of the same, right? Battle Hymn is one of our strongest rituals because we have a lot of incidental cards, creatures. As we've shown, like Burning Tree Emissary is free, it draws cards, and it sits there, right? It doesn't do anything, right? We play a bunch of 1-mana ramp creatures, Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic. So Battle Hymn will end up being like +3, 4, 5 mana just naturally. Rocco gets a creature, so that's 2 on the battlefield. And then Spirit Guide and Lotus Petal are free mana if you use all of your mana to start the engine you need one more to like start doing anything. So you need some amount of free ramp, right? And if you, for whatever reason, use Lotus Petal and Simian Spirit Guide during the game, you can't start the combo with no mana because you won't ever be able to generate mana. Infernal Plunge is very strong. It sacrifices, it puts the Burning Tree Emissary back in the graveyard. It sacrifices Rocco to put it back in the command zone to be used again. Similarly, Metamorphosis. Now, there's a whole video to be done on Metamorphosis, right? There's an argument about whether we should use bounce spells, right, that put it back to our hand, right, and get around commander attacks like Horn Kavu, or if I should play Metamorphosis effects and Infernal Plunge, or if I should play both. Metamorphosis, the first time you cast it, if you cast it to sacrifice Rocco to sort of as like a recast, it's 2 mana better than a bounce spell. The second time, if it's your third time casting Rocco, Metamorphosis will be the same as a bounce spell because it'll make 4, so it'll pay for the commander tax. The first time it'll make 4, and the commander tax will only be 2, so you're plus 2 mana. The second time, it'll make 4, which will pay for the whole commander tax. So it's only worse than a bounce spell on the third cast. And we have enough creatures, especially Burning Tree Emissary and Wild Cantor and Tinderwall here, that you can see that the fact that it can only cast creatures is not relevant. Or not a hindrance. It is relevant, but it's not a hindrance. And one of our combo pieces happens to be a creature. So it doesn't hold you back. Now, it can't be your only ritual because it can't cast Infernal Plunge, Battle Hymn, Rite of Flame. It can't do that. So you need more than just Metamorphosis. Or you need Metamorphosis like into Burning Tree Emissary because then you turn that creature only mana into usable mana. And the rest of them are just rituals. Tinderwall and Rite of Flame are basically the same card. That's about it. We have some other miscellaneous cards. Basking Root Walla is it's a card that does one thing pretty good, but whether or not that thing is like super relevant is up for debate. It adds a creature to the battlefield, which is good for Battle Hymn, good for your sacrifice effects, good for just being a random blocker, right? It interacts because we play a lot of loot spells to dig through our deck, but it's just sort of like a bland 0 mana creature. And Flaring Pain is vital because the only way we win is by dealing red damage to everybody. And if somebody Prismatic Strands or anything else, right, to prevent red damage, we have access to Flaring Pain, which we can guarantee we'll put in our graveyard as part of our combo, right? And then we'll stop that, nip that in the bud, right? And the beauty of Flaring Pain is like, unless it's countered, right, you can't just like Prismatic Strands in response. Like, you can't get a Prismatic Strands underneath it because they don't directly interact. Flaring Pain just says damage can't be prevented. It doesn't matter whether Prismatic Strands has resolved or not, or resolves later, right? The can't beats the can, and Flaring Pain stops it in its tracks. One of the weak points of the combo is that it requires tapping of a creature, so haste is somewhat relevant. In many cases, it's easier to just protect the Seeker of Skybreak, but we have 4 haste enablers that all offer us a little bit extra, right? We don't play anything that's just like target creature gets haste because that wouldn't be good enough, right? So first day of class puts counters on things, makes things a little bit bigger, which is nice. Gives haste, but it also has learn, so it comes with like a loot effect stapled on, which is good, helps us get through our deck. Bitter Reunion is the same way. Comes with a loot effect stapled onto it, also gives haste. Burning Sun's Fury is our only gives haste card, but it's free a lot of times if you play Seeker and then Rocco for Hanger Scrounger. You can tap Rocco and Hanger Scrounger to cast Burning Sun's Fury because it doesn't matter if they tap or not, right? You got 2 creatures as part of putting the combo together to cast the Burning Sun's Fury. And Prophetic Ravings can give haste, can also just turn a random dork into a looter. It's a rummage effect stapled onto a haste enabler. So it offers us a little bit extra. It also costs only 1 mana, These all cost 2. Technically, Burning Sun's Fury is usually free, but it's at 1 mana. It's hard to ignore. Our protection package is 9 cards. It might actually not be enough. Might need more. You know, it's tough to say. You don't want to. You can't play too many cards that are card negative in the deck, right? And you also can't play too many cards that like don't keep you moving, right? You need velocity. You have to get through the deck. So if your hand is just all protection spells, you're gonna be stuck. You're gonna be stuck with a bunch of protection spells and nothing to protect, right? But these are all pretty cool. Vines of the Vastwood offers us like some protection plus interaction because you can give your opponent's creature hexproof from their own spells, you know, to counter a Freed from the Real or something. Similarly to Blacksmith Skill can do the same thing. Ephemeral Shields has the Burning Sun's Fury bonus where it can be cast for free. Prismatic Strands can be flashed back for essentially free. A couple counter spells: Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, and then just some more protection. Loren's Escape can do the Vines of the Vastwood thing and has a scry attached to it. Apostle's Blessing costs 1 colorless, which is nice. Tamiya Safekeeping comes with a little bit of incidental life gain. They're bland, but you gotta keep the Seeker alive. You know, you could turn all of these into haste cards and try and combo off in one turn if you so chose, but it's easier to just, you know, you take your pseudo interaction because the deck is light on interaction, and you know, you do your best. You're fast. Your bonus is that you're fast, right? So if somebody's trying, like, turn 5-6 is like the key moment for the deck, and a lot of decks are trying to like still build into their game plan in turn 5 and 6. You know, they're holding up counter spells maybe, but they're like they gotta keep moving. There's not a lot of decks that can just sit there on turn 5. There's no sweepers in the game. What? Not no sweepers. There's limited numbers of sweepers. So there's not a lot of like sit there and wait decks. Especially because, you know, there's 3 other people, you know, and they're all doing very powerful things. So your advantage is you're fast, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, they can see it with Rocco. They know something dangerous is coming, but like they don't know how early it's coming, and it comes early. Like I said, turn 2 at the best, but like turn 4, 5, 6 is a really dangerous time to be playing against this deck. We mentioned Velocity. These are our draw spells. They're not really notable. Wirewood Herald is not technically a draw spell. It's a search for Seeker of Skybreak. But the rest of these are draw spells. Lannar Visionary is a ramp spell. Faithless Looting has flashback, but the rest of these are just, you know, rummage spells. Highway Robbery. Plotting it, you can. It's really there because you can sack a land. We don't need a ton of lands. And you know, we plan on turning a land into a card with white on anyways, so Highway Robbery kind of like jumps that. You know, we turn a land and a card into 2 cards. Spirited Companion is an Elvish Visionary, kind of bland. They're just like bodies. They play nice with. Forgot the card's name. Anyway, and the rest of these are just rummage spells. They're just like it's the velocity. You have to keep moving in order to have action. To do anything, you have to keep moving through the deck, right? So 10% of our deck is draw spells. We have our commander that can search. So that's how we keep moving. We also ramp a lot because Rocco dies a lot. You know, it's not weird to cast him 3, 4, 5 times, and that's expensive. You know, a couple of those are usually from hand, but like it's still 3, 4, 5 times. So we play as much 1-mana ramp as we can get our hands on, really. And there's more, but it's got to be decent. Springleaf Drum, color fixes, Wild Growth, Mystic, Pilgrim, Lenore Elves and Finehorn Elves are a 1-mana package. Now there's some that are like tap a creature and tap this, and they're probably fine, but you don't want too many creatures. We need some non-creature permanents as our ramp, otherwise we're going to get blown out. Primal Growth, Into the North, and Harrow are our, you know, our search cards. They're our primary ways to search for lands. That's our non-creature ramp, right? Harrow and Primal Growth are super sweet because, you know, it comes in untapped and allows us to get that velocity. And Dance of the Tumbleweeds is kind of cool. The deck struggles in like a stalled game The mid game is tough because you don't have anything really to do outside of Rocco. So Dance of the Tumbleweeds, it allows you to, if you were able to hold it or you found it late, it's a half decent top deck because it can get a land, which is good, and it can also make a body, like a big body, probably 6/6 or 7/7, right? For 5, you know, or 6 to get a land, and now it's an 8/8. You know, it's not a terrible card, and it's not the kind of card that somebody's going to be like too interested in wasting a counter on because it's easy to kill a creature, but like it's still a body that somebody has to keep an eye on. Rodeo Pyromancers is an interesting way to ramp. It gives you 2 mana a turn, which is cool. In testing, like one time I like metamorphosis my Rocco with Pyromancers out, and that's just 1 mana for 6. That's +5. That's huge. Right? It's very easy to cast the 8 mana Rocco to get the Hanger Scrounger if Rodeo Pyromancer is giving you 2 free. Plus, it just helps with that velocity because most of our draw spells are 2 mana, so you can get 2 of them off in a turn. Small recursion package, get stuff back from the graveyard. There's not too many good cards in this category that we can run, so we run most of them. We don't want to venture into like the 3-4 mana range. You could run salvage. You could fit a salvage in there to get another reclaim effect. But Return Triumphant and Recommission hit both of our combo cards. Revive the Shire and Reclaim hit permanents, anything. Most of the deck is permanents. Most of the cards you want are permanents. So Revive the Shire is probably fine. It lets you let Rocco die if you have it in your hand, instead of paying the commander tax again. You can let it die, get it back, and then your commander tax is kind of just 2. Plus the food is somewhat relevant. Demand Answers is the only card that's relevant with, but it comes up, right? It's not irrelevant. It's just not super relevant. And then we have 2 flex spots. Cactarantula is a cool card for the same reasons the Tumbleweeds is. It's just sort of like a mid-game body. It has reach, which is nice. It can cost 5. And it's tough to get off the board because you don't want to give me cards, right? I need cards. I desperately want cards in my hand. So nobody's going to be like, yeah, I'll give you cards. Plus, you can protect it if somebody wants to fight over it. It's just like solid. There's probably better cards. I'm going to be honest. It's a spot that's like being actively managed. Cactarantula is just the current card in that spot. And then Lava Dart can rebuy your Rocco. It's like dumb, but it's relevant. For free. Like you sack a mountain to get your Rocco back into your command zone. It's light interaction. There's X ones in the format that you want to kill, but mostly it's there as another way to get your Rocco back because that can be a limiting factor. If you have to Rocco for Seeker, you have to get Rocco back somehow to Rocco for Hanger Scrounger. So we only have so many ways to do that: Metamorphosis, Infernal Plunge, Lava Dart, Horned Kavu. There's not a ton. Right, but I mean, you get in, you attack, maybe they block, or you leave it back and nobody attacks you because they don't want to kill your Rocco. A lot of things can happen with Rocco to get it back, but Lava Dart lets you expedite the process. Last up is our mana base, which is pretty straightforward. We run 31 straight lands, 21, 25, 28, 29, 30, 31, yeah. 28 snow lands, the 3 duels, plus 25 basics, which I don't love running 25 basics, but like it helps you avoid having too many tap lands. We run 3 1 mana land cyclers from Lord of the Rings because they're awesome. Cabaret Courtyard as just a speck of incidental life gain. You'd be surprised how good just having a little bit. Campfire, Tameo Safekeeping, Cabaret Courtyard. You gain 4 life over the course of a game. Like it might keep you alive for an extra turn, right? Which is a whole extra turn. It's another card. That's another attempt at the combo. And then Command Tower and Conduit Pylons are our other 2 non-snow lands. Command Tower because obviously it makes any color mana. And then Conduit Pylons is for Tumbleweeds mostly, but the Surveil is nice. It can make any color of mana. We're not that color starved. Like you wouldn't keep a hand that's only Conduit Pylons because you really can't. But we're not that color starved that we can't sacrifice, like that the cost is too high to run the pylons instead of like another forest or another tap land or like a Path of Ancestry or something. We want the Surveil. The Surveil is good. It gives us eke out a little more value out of our mana base, because we can't eke much out at all, right? There's 28 lands here that do nothing, 29 lands here that do nothing, and one that gains us 1 life, and then one that surveils. There's not a lot. You could run like maybe a County Gardens would be okay as a forest. Maybe that body's good, maybe not. I don't know. But there's no Bajuka Bog, right? We're not in black. Sajiri Steps, you could run it. You could run a little crop rotation package if you wanted to. I haven't actually tried it, so by all means, somebody lay out a crop rotation package. I could be easily convinced to run crop rotation in any deck. But that's it. That's the whole thing. You kind of bide your time, and play your ramp, draw your cards, get the velocity going, and then attack around turn 5 or 6, and then you win. Now there's going to be like a bunch more videos in this. There's a lot of weaknesses. Okay, it's Glass Cannon E. It's not as Glass Cannon E as something like Oops All Spells, right? In like Modern or Legacy, or Dredge. Like, it's not that Glass Cannon E. It's not a Charbelcher deck, right? But it is, right? Like, you scoop to you don't scoop, but if somebody plays like a turn 1 relic, like, that's a problem. That's a big problem for you, unless they get it off the field, unless they don't know what you're doing, and they can get it, and you can get them to get rid of it before you combo off. Because if you just go to Felden's Cannon, they exile your graveyard, you lose. Your library's empty. So we're going to go over those in a different video. We'll go over the combo lines in depth in a different video, because I didn't really touch on exactly how the combo works, just like the pieces. But when you're doing it live, there's a lot of decisions that you have to be made. Which cards are discarded, which cards you can roll, or which cards you have to keep, which cards you should keep, which cards you should keep when. So there's a lot more to come. This is an overview, and thanks for watching.